Good morning. We are live on YouTube, but we want to bring in our Facebook groups as well. Atlanta Falcons fans on All Falcons and Scott Kennedy Sports. So we'll bring those on. Hope everybody's having had a great weekend. Is looking forward to a good Monday morning. And welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast on another beautiful Monday morning in the South. I am in Atlanta. This guy over here is in Seattle. So we're coast to coast and time zone to time zone with your Falcons Podcast this morning. And just a reminder for those of you who are listening after the fact on Apple Pods or wherever you get your podcasts, we are live every Monday morning and every Wednesday morning. That will start to change in June. So stay tuned to the descriptions to get an idea of when we are going to be live if you wanted to come and join us. But if you are listening after the fact, we appreciate a nice thumbs up review. Give a like, share, and a 5-star review on Apple Pods does a lot to help us out. So good morning, Nick. How are you doing so far this morning? I know it's bright and early in Seattle.
I am doing okay. Honestly, it's a miracle that I'm here because I set my alarm for 6:30 and I definitely hit snooze. And I woke up like terror in my heart and looked over and it said 6:50. I'm like, oh, I gotta go. I gotta feed the dog and run down here. So you sent that link late, Scott. I didn't even notice it until the moment I pulled it up. So we're here. We're excited to talk football. And who needs coffee when you have terror in your heart?
Panic.
Waking up a little early?
Panic is always a very good wake up fuel. So lots of folks rolling in this morning. I want to say hello to some people. Michael Ranquillo's in bright and early. Says good morning, Scott and Nick on the Falcons Podcast. Good morning, Michael. And Roderick Cook coming in over from the UK. And Zach Powers as well is already in here. Victor Bellotti, welcome in, Victor. Good to see you. He says, good morning, guys. Been a little busy in the last week, catching up on the shows. Ritter will surprise us all. I'm hoping for a 30 touchdowns, 3,500-yard season. And that's not counting rushing, Victor. That might just be passing. So the title of the show was playing around the three things I want to get to today in the show. Quickly, we'll go about 30 minutes or so. Chris Sims, even when I wrote it up, I had a hard time calling him NFL analyst. I just called him former NFL quarterback. He's got Desmond Ridder ranked 40th out of 40 NFL quarterbacks. That seems a little harsh to me. I understand where you might have him low just because of the sample size, etc. We'll get into that one a little bit. I want to get into there's a defensive player for the Falcons, a new one that's getting a lot of early attention as, hey, keep an eye out for this guy. Breakout players to watch. His name keeps coming up. We'll get into that a little bit. And then we want to talk a little bit about the path to the division championship. We went through the the schedule last year, but last week. But I want to talk about how the NFC South is ranked. PFF ranked all 8 divisions, and you might not be surprised where the NFC South came out. But it's not just the NFC South that will affect the Falcons schedule. So good morning, Victor. Appreciate you being here. Alan coming in. He says, good morning, gentlemen. Good morning to you as well. Albert Knoppers coming in over on Facebook. And if you notice this over my shoulder here, Albert does some work on mailboxes and creates them into art. And this one, he did a duel. He knows I do Falcons and Broncos, among other things, for podcasts.
Oh, wow.
Albert sent me a mailbox that is split.
Oh, that's so
it is
cool.
very cool. So, Albert, thank you very much. And if you watched Ted Lasso and got to learn, about the Dutch and their honesty and all that type of stuff, Albert sent it with an apology note saying, this isn't very good. I made too many mistakes. I'm going to send you another one. Albert, I appreciate you thinking of me, man. I love it. So thank you very much. And we'll flip it for our next show. We'll turn it on the other side. Raymond Collins says, good morning, Nick and Scott. Good morning, Raymond. And Keith Robbins saying good morning. He's changed his Facebook avatar picture. And Kevin Mapp coming in. And Roderick Cook says, and good morning, Kevin. He says, Ritter's no Pat Mahomes, but we don't need him to be. He'll be competent. That'll do. And that's the thing, Nick. I don't know how you think so little of Desmond Ridder in his 4 starts where he looked pretty good. Again, if you throw out his very first start, I think he threw the ball 12, 15 times. Take his last 3 starts, small sample size, but it is a sample size. His quarterback rating would have put him top 12, top 11, not 40. And to have him behind guys like Sam Howell, all 3 rookie quarterbacks, all of them, journeyman this just seems a little harsh. It seems like you're just trying to make a point. And I feel like Chris Sims does that with every piece of analytics that he does, analysis he does. He throws one thing out there to get people's attention. Like, hey, come talk about this because nobody's coming to NBC Sports Talk Digital to read our stuff.
Yeah, Chris Sims, I feel like he had that 2018 where he ranked that rookie quarterback class exceptionally well compared to the consensus. Like, I think he was very low on Darnold, Rosen, and Baker, and he had Allen number 1 and Lamar Jackson number 2. Well, that looked pretty good, and since then he has not hit the same. But heck, if you hit that well compared to general consensus, then good for you. But as far as Desmond Ridder goes, I really like it when you see like the tier triangles come out, or like the tiers come out, and Ritter would be lumped in with too early to tell. I mean, it's really just, this is essentially Chris Sims showing what he thought of Ritter as a college quarterback, because that's what you're mainly basing your thoughts and analysis on right now. Putting him 40, somebody's got to be 40th. I don't think I would definitely put Howell lower without a doubt, but every single one of these, it almost feels like, okay, I have to come out with content here for something like this. It has to be ranked this way, but I need to add an asterisk on like 10 of these guys because we just don't know yet. Yeah. So it's not to be, that's not to be a wet blanket on it, because that's not as inflammatory or, eye-catching as the 40th ranked quarterback, but like he could be the 40th ranked quarterback, right? Like that's a possibility, but I think it's much more going to be like middle of the pack this season, maybe even, the 25 to 15 range. And if he's that on a rookie contract, I mean, you're getting surplus value, and that should be good enough with this roster and this division to be very feisty this season. So
yeah, to winning record and talking about playoffs. Now, I have a question for you, just to try and steelman his argument a little bit. I think his numbers will end up being much better than 32nd out of the starters. Mm-hmm. But could that still make him the 32nd starter? Does that make sense what I'm asking? Like, he could end up being put in a system where he's putting up decent numbers, but still isn't a great quarterback. They're hiding him. Marcus Mariota, if you look at ESPN's QBR, he was top 10 last year. He was hovering around there the whole time based on, because they added in some rushing and these type of things. But no one's watching those games thinking he's a top 10 quarterback. He was a bottom 5 quarterback who was playing in an efficient offense. So is it possible that even if he is the 32nd starter, he could have top 15 numbers?
Yeah, like EPA per play is very much a system-based statistic. Now, it can be like over multiple seasons. You can get an idea of who's great or not. But I think back to Teddy Bridgewater 2 years ago for the Broncos, and he was like for a while, he was like top 8 in EPA per play. Then he got injured and things kind of fell off there. But yeah, I think with Desmond Ridder and probably the way the offense is going to be set up, they're not going to ask him to play hero ball. It's like what the Bills are asking of Josh Allen and what the Chiefs are asking of Mahomes compared to what the Falcons will ask of Desmond Ridder. Even if, the stats are great, it's probably going to be that's safe bet, Nick, going to be a different caliber quarterback just because of what they are able to ask him, the situations that he's in. It's a very quarterback friendly offense. They're not, like last year, I can't even remember many, high caliber, high leverage throws that Mariota was even asked to do. It just, now part of that is, are they being dialed up and the quarterback's not taking them?
I've seen the video of Kyle Pitts getting missed about 8 times on wide open plays downfield because it was the sarcastic font of Smith doesn't know how to use Pitts, and it's just Mariota just missing him over and over and over. Hell, 7 of those at 30 yards apiece, and you put another 210 and he breaks 2 of those and 2 touchdowns, all of a sudden it looks pretty good, and he stays healthy, of course.
Yeah.
That's a big one. But it is a nice system quarterback, and saying, I think he's got upside as good, if not better, than Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill was an athlete who ended up being a quarterback. He went to Texas A&M as a wide receiver. So I again, I'll put the question mark on, I mentioned last week, Greg Rosenthal at least gave him a little bit of, I think it was Rosenthal, at least gave him benefit of the doubt, saying, hey, these are the biggest questions. It's Ritter. We don't know. Okay, thank you. Not biggest questions. We have a question about Ritter, and we're going to go ahead and answer it. He's awful. Wow. How'd you do that? That's really cool. They can't win with this guy, man. All right, let's run it. And Colin Cowherd, same way. So I think Ritter, even if he's a talent-wise, even if he's a bottom half quarterback, I think he could be in the system to be a top half quarterback, which is okay. Well, then doesn't he become, by and large, a top half quarterback?
Yeah, and we've talked about it a lot. The quarterback question here is, what are you looking for? Because Desmond Ridder on a rookie contract, that's being efficient quarterback, and that's fine. For what you're paying him, that's fine. But that's a stopgap, essentially. If he doesn't become, a top, you want to look for somebody that's worth that second contract, third contract. And that's what, I feel pretty confident in saying that in this system, with his tools, with his upside, with his intelligence that he plays with, he's going to be fine on his rookie contract here. Is he the Falcons quarterback for the next decade? That's a different conversation. If you're fine for just answering this season, okay, God bless. That's great. But the franchise quarterback question is going to take a while to suss that one out.
Yeah, there's still people wonder if Matt Ryan was a franchise quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. So,
well, we don't have to talk about those people.
That was, but no, I know what you mean. And Joe Cannon, Larry Sims, he says, rise up and good morning. And Joe Cannon coming in says, great morning, Scott and Nick. I've been completely tied up at work, but I couldn't miss 2 shows in a row. Well, we're glad you're here. Michael Corietti, he says, good morning, good morning, boys. And no one cares what Sims thinks. I think that's part of the problem, Michael. We'll talk about it because it's the week before Memorial Day and it's kind of a slow time. And this is what we're talking about. But I agree. Like, if it weren't for Twitter, I might not have any idea that Chris Sims was even doing things anymore. And I don't watch a lot of that, frankly. Anyway, I watch the games. That's what I watch. I don't typically watch what other people are saying. You want an opinion? Ask me. I'll tell you. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm doing.
And you
Gary
talked about the
says,
upside.
good morning, Nick and Scott. Good morning, Gary.
Good
Big
morning,
Ant
Gary.
says, good morning, Scott and Nick from the ATL. Good morning, Big Ant. We're glad you're here with us today. That's a good looking. What do we call those things? They're not avatars. Screen pictures, screenshot. What do we call
Selfie?
But what do you call the picture that's attached to your profile? Your profile pic. There you go. That's what we'll call it. Talking about, I'm only like a couple sips into my coffee this morning, y'all. So, and Larry Sims, he says Ritter is the Rodney Dangerfield of the NFL. I said it 2 weeks ago. I put it down. If he's not the most disrespected player in the NFL already, who is? Russell Wilson could make an argument for that, but he's accomplished a whole lot and gets zero respect. But Ritter is being dragged through the muck and just thrown under the garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? He was good when he came out. Was it because if he had played earlier? If he had played earlier, is it because you're like, well, he couldn't even beat out Marcus Mariota and he was terrible? Is that part of it? But it's not a lost season, but it was a season where they weren't competing for anything, and you could take your time with Desmond Ridder. Did you see enough out of Kenny Pickett to go, oh yeah, Kenny Pickett's the guy for the Steelers for the next decade? But all of a sudden, Ritter's not? I don't get it sometimes.
Kenny Pickett played for a Power 5 program. He was a first-round pick, and he plays for the Steelers. It's just, we saw him the entire season as well, I think. I don't think
that's what I mean. I think if Ritter goes 7-10 and finishes a season like he did 2-2 with a 94 rating, is the narrative the same?
Circling back to what we talked about earlier, it's hard to say because what does that look like within the confines of the offense? Is he just only asked to make layups and he can't, hit an open mid-range shot because the offense is so easy because you have Bijan Robinson in that run game, and therefore people are thinking, oh man, if we just put in a above average quarterback, imagine where this offense goes. So it'll be interesting. I mean, Ritter is going to continue to be disrespected until he goes out there and puts together multiple games. And I feel pretty confident in this offense to put him in a situation to succeed from a team perspective. Now, are they going to ask him to be, the guy? Is he the truck or the trailer? The kind of question. I think coined that with Bucky Brooks. Then he'll probably be more of the trailer than the truck, which is fine for a quarterback on a rookie contract. But will be a lot of fun to monitor the season. You mentioned his upside maybe being a Ryan Tannehill. I think it's an easy comparison because the offensive system and Arthur Smith. But for me, the name that I keep coming back to that I think the ideal situation for Ritter would be the rookie contract Dak Prescott. Also a kind of a 3rd, 4th round guy. Everything is predicated around the run game. Use a premium pick on the running back. I mean, that was criticized as well from Ezekiel Elliott to Bijan Robinson. and everything is simple for them, but they develop into a quarterback, not incredible tools, but good athleticism, accurate, great processor. And I think that's the ideal path going forward, not only from a long-term perspective, but from a development perspective that you can follow from Ritter. I think it's the Dak Prescott pathway, one for
Ritter
one.
would be thrilled with that. I just saw a
Yeah.
note that said that the players that have been paid the most in the last 3 years, Prescott was number 2 on that list. Russell
Yep.
Wilson was number 1 because he got a big signing bonus with his contract last year. So even though his average hasn't been that high, his average salary hasn't been that high, he's gotten the most cash. And Prescott was number 2 on the list. So Ritter would be real happy about that. And Roderick, this is when I first started like getting back into the NFL, was that draft. And he asked us, he'd have Mac Jones number 2 or something. I think so. I think probably. And he kept saying that the 49ers were taking Mac Jones. I was like, oh my God. Because at that time there was thought, could the Falcons take a quarterback? And at the time I was thinking Mac Jones trade down and maybe sneaks into the back end of the first, maybe, because he was at the Senior Bowl and he looked good there. And I was like, at 3? What? No, God, no. And then, Mac Jones goes and starts for a Bill Belichick team and gets all the accolades in the world. Kevin Mapp has a nice zing. He says, well, I rank Sims 40th in Texas Longhorn quarterbacks I've seen. Is he that high? No, Chris Sims was a good quarterback at Texas. His younger brother, Matt, I think it was his younger brother, Matt, had all the hype with him, but he wasn't as good a prospect as Chris was. Chris was a pretty good player. Didn't live up to the billing, the next, he had Arch Manning type of hype around him, coming in with a name already, a number 1 guy, but he was pretty good. But there are a lot of quarterbacks at Texas, so he could have been 40th.
Yeah.
Brandon Swank asked a question that keeps getting asked a lot. He said, would you rather Ryan Tannehill make a trade for him or see what you've got in Ritter? The Falcons trade for Ryan Tannehill, I might help lead the riots because I think they'd be storming the streets. Nobody in Atlanta wants Ryan Tannehill. Nobody. There's no talk of that at all. In Atlanta, there's lots of noise. Outside Atlanta, they've done nothing to make us think that they're making a move for a quarterback beyond Taylor Heineke as the backup, Grayson Kidd, local guy, for Desmond Ridder to start. I would pan that move. I don't think Tannehill is good enough to take you to the next level. So if he's not, I'm not giving up anything for him. Those are my thoughts on him.
Yeah, for Tannehill, that's somebody to keep an eye on for this offseason if Ritter does fall flat on his face and you're looking for a competent bridge quarterback to get you through a season that knows the system and the offensive staff. So this year it's going to be Ritter. And if Ritter, struggles or is not the guy, then you could see that short-term move for a Tannehill. But I do not see that happening this season.
Yeah, and Zach said in Sims' defense, I think he said Howell looked better in his few starts. How? 1 touchdown, 1 interception? Maybe. Jeffrey Niffen, he says a point that I like on this that I do want to start pushing back on a little bit. He says Ritter's stats from the games he played proved our system isn't meant for a quarterback to throw 30-plus times. Mariota never did it all season. Ritter didn't get close either. A leader, maybe. They judge harshly off of stats given. His stats were pretty good. Efficiency ratings, he was top 12. That's been my point on this. Mm-hmm. And if you can't beat Mariota, that's a very valid point. Thank you. Fans want to win now. I don't want to trash our quarterback, but there are numbers to go off. The numbers are pretty good. And here's my point on this, Jeffrey, and I've said it all along. If people try and pigeonhole Arthur Smith's offense, he's going to run the ball, all this. I don't know how much of a choice he's had. That's kind of the point I've been making. He threw the ball plenty when Matt Ryan was his quarterback, and he had Calvin Ridley out there and Kyle Pitts out there, Russell Gage. And then you go down and you got a rookie and you got Kyle Pitts and you got Marcus Mariota. All right. I'm not going to blame them for not trying to throw the ball around a whole lot. Now, as you get more confident with your quarterback, as you get your offensive weapons in place, and I'm going to use that phrase a lot, Nick, offensive weapons. Mm-hmm. Because if they line up in a 4 wide and a running back, and you go Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and you go Cordell Patterson, Bijan Robinson in the slot with Tyler Algier as your running back, those are weapons, man. You might throw the ball. You might throw the ball around a little bit more. So I'm not ready to judge Arthur Smith's offense on the whole until I see more parts in place. And I think we'll get a better view of that this year. And you still basically have a rookie quarterback. So I still don't expect him to sling it 30 plus, but I'm not saying he won't, if that makes sense.
Yeah, listing out those weapons comes back to, man, the Falcons probably could use some wide receiver help still long term. I mean, you listed 5 playmakers out there, skill position, and one of them was a wide receiver. Overall, we talk positionless football. I know, but that's one that's, again, it comes back to that. And you talked about, the need to drop back and sling it. Last season, you mentioned multiple times, there was a point in Arthur Smith where it's not working for them in offense. And even though they're down and they really need to, for an efficiency standpoint, start passing the football for time and just the ability to get explosives, he says, F it. We're going to run the ball.
We're just going to run the ball.
Yep. And that's more because of the lack of quarterback ability in that drop back pass game. Some questions on the offensive line in the drop back pass game. Talk about Caleb McGarry there still, and the lack of weaponry as well. So these are all things to watch this season. We have a lot of questions about this offense. Defense should be much better with the resources they threw at it, but it does come down to, it's going to be a run first team. That's what's going to stir the drink.
The straw that stirs the drink.
The straw that stirs the drink will be the run game, but it's the NFL, and at some point you'll have to operate a drop back pass game to stay in games or to catch up in a game.
Chris Sims is stirring the pot.
Yes.
Mark Schrader says, good morning, Mark. How you doing? Cristiano Rodin, appreciate you being here as well. Jay Gribben says, let's run with Ritter, please. No one else. Good morning, Jay. Hope you were doing well, my friend. Fellow Pope alum. I think Jay was class of 92. I was class of 91. Not to give away your age, Jay. I apologize. Bijan Robinson living it up a little bit. He was over at the Western Conference Finals. Saw the picture on the floor in LA. It was kind of cool. Talking about leading the charge. If there was a trade for Ryan Tannehill, it'd get kind of ugly. How can no team want Tannehill but Ritter is ranked 40th out of quarterbacks? Make it make sense. Age and money. Ritter's cheap and has some upside to him. Tannehill, you know what you've got. You've got the hope that that Ritter can keep moving forward. If I were to play one game tomorrow, I'd probably take Tannehill. He's just got the experience, and you know what you're going to get for sure. But with Ritter, you've got some upside there. And it's cheap. The cost control is a big one on that. So let's get, since we talked about, we've got just a couple more minutes here. I want to hit some of these other topics. I know I feel like we've been talking about the Ritter disrespect for a month, and I promise I'll stop until he starts doing well and he's still like disrespected. Oh, he's 30th on the quarterback. He's first in efficiency. Then we'll start talking about it again. But one of the best kept secrets, one of the breakout players, Caden Ellis, is a player that is getting mentioned a lot. And I think he played 11 games and had 7 sacks, and he's doing it a lot, kind of shooting the gaps, coming up the middle. That's a good name for a band or a pod, shooting the gaps.
Bridge the gap is the
yeah, I know. It works with my baseball stuff too. So Caden Ellis, really efficient pass rusher in Ryan Nielsen's system last year. Bleacher Report did a players to watch, breakout players. I think PFF had him as a breakout player also. And while the Falcons didn't get a whole lot better so far on the edge with their pass rushers, they added a lot right up the middle, including Caden Ellis and David Onyemata.
Yeah, they did add Zach Harrison, and Zach Harrison can be an occupier. And what does a big body, lengthy occupier do? Can free up some space for, even as an edge rusher, free up some space for some of those gaps to shoot. So Caden Ellis is going to be a lot of fun this season. I'll be very curious to see how the mixture of linebacker play goes this season for them. Obviously, you have Troy Anderson as well there at the linebacker spot. Still pretty raw, but we talked about the athletic tools, just, freaky sideline to sideline and upside. And year 2, this should be one where you really start to see him take off. So yeah, Caden Ellis should be in a good situation. I don't think that the defensive line talent is, well, God, I don't know. You have Campbell as well.
Campbell. And don't forget, Taquan Graham is in the rotation again too when he comes back. Taquan and Grady were good last year.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be
Abdullah Anderson was solid. They just didn't have anybody behind them.
Yeah. So having a linebacker that can get pressure, you don't have, again, we've talked about it many times. Would it be great to have that, all pro, Pro Bowl type of defensive lineman, especially on the edge that, you can count on to get 12 sacks this season? Yes, but this is going to be more about the overall unit and having Caden Ellis, somebody, especially with where the NFL is going right now with more amorphous defensive fronts, having somebody at that second level that can be a high efficiency pass rusher, especially in third downs and pass rush situations, I think is great for the overall unit and should help a Falcons defense that has just been dreadful at getting after the quarterback over the last 2 seasons.
I called the 2021 season statistically impossible. I mean, they were so bad that if they signed a 10 sack, a double-digit sack guy, they still would have finished last. Wow. I mean, yeah, we got a guy who just added 10 sacks, and you still finish last in sacks. I say it all the time. I'm like, y'all are hearing that, right? Do you realize how awful that is? It's unbelievable. Like, yeah, okay, that's cool. Wait a minute, what? You did what? We signed a 40 home run guy and we still finished last in home runs? And that's what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. But Keith, welcome in, Keith. He says it's pretty wild that the Falcons will be the only team in the NFC South that will have experience between quarterback and head coach. On the same team. Baker Mayfield starts at Tampa. It could be that way, but I think what you mean is they've worked together. There won't be anybody that has worked together so far, for sure. There's been because obviously there's experience. I mean, Derek Carr has experience in the NFL, so that's what you mean. When Ryan comes up again, Ritter wins week 1. This talk will go away until people try and cover their own narrative by saying they're winning despite Desmond Ridder. That's the next step in the disrespect in this, and that's fine. You know, you go 12-5 and keep poo-pooing on Ritter. Guess who's going to be happy? Falcons fans. Yep. Falcons fans are going to be happy. Finally, before we get out of here, just want to say real quick, the path to the NFC South should be fairly easy relatively. PFF ranks all the divisions, and they've got the NFC South ranked 8th. No surprise there. But why is that important? It's because they're matched up on their cross-divisional in the AFC with the AFC South, and the AFC South is ranked 7th. And I'd make an argument that they might even be worse. You can talk about that. They're both really bad. Yeah. So when you're talking about 10 of your 17 games against NFC South and AFC South, okay. And then one of your others is Arizona Cardinals. Okay. 11 of your games are Arizona Cardinals, AFC South, NFC South. 11 out of 17. You get 2 and 4 in your other 6. You should be a playoff team, Nick.
I mean, nothing made it more obvious than going through the Falcons schedule last week than the next day going through the Broncos schedule. What a night and day difference. I mean, we talked about it. You play, 3 teams that are in the top half of the Super Bowl odds this season going into it. So it's really, I mean, it's the Jets, the Jags, and I think maybe the Saints from the top half too, but that's about it.
The Saints were like 16th. I think you were right.
Yeah. So it's going to be, there's really no excuse this season, right? Like, you want to talk about a golden opportunity for Desmond Ridder. I mean, even the defenses they're going against, looking at the numbers, do you guys play the Commanders too? Am I mixing up the Broncos in this?
That sounds right. And I think it's at home. You know, it's like even the teams that last year we cautioned, that you're probably only going to be scheduled in 2 games or favored in 2 games is because even the winnable games were on the road. Well, you went up to Seattle and beat them. San Francisco came here and lose to 3 of the losing teams on their schedule. Who'd they lose to? Like Arizona? Yeah. It was Arizona, Denver, and the Falcons, 3 teams in the top 10, and they were a Super Bowl favorite, So
the Bears.
You never know, but I believe that Arthur Smith has outperformed expectations in his 2 years. Well, guess what? Expectations are higher now. Yeah. Outperform them again, and we're talking playoffs for sure.
And happy for these 2 teams. Just looking at the Falcons schedule, I remember going through it. Now, the teams that stand out as maybe the toughest 2 games the entire season are the Detroit Lions and Jacksonville Jaguars, back-to-back weeks. God, you told me that 5 years ago. You had to smack the shock off my face.
Those are 2 that are usually talking about favorites for the number 1 overall pick. On that note, we've got to get out of here because we've got to do some Mile High Huddle work. We will be back Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. right here, where we'll go for the full hour, where we can get into this a little bit and start talking about this because the chat's popping now. Y'all are killing it. The numbers are going up. I hate to get out of here, but we've got to. So Just a reminder, if you're listening to us or if you haven't, go find us on Apple Pods. It's Falcons Podcast and give us a review. It helps us out a ton. That has been growing very nicely over the last couple months during draft season. And with your help, we can continue to keep growing it. On that note, everybody have a great Monday. It's gorgeous out here in the Southeast. Come on over and see us at Mile High Huddle if you choose. Otherwise, we will see you Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock. Have a great day, everybody.
Peace.